in an area that's very prone to the extremes of droughts and floods.
An extreme drought is where we have been for years now. Typically, another 30 feet of water sits above my head, but not lately. Going back to the start of 2022, Austin has missed out on a whopping 29 inches of rainfall. The numbers are worse the farther west you go, where 30 to 40 inches of rain is missing in just the last few years. This is a common theme across a great expanse of West Texas, where it is critical for water to fall because this area is the watershed that replenishes our highland lakes. Take, well, Lake Travis, for example. If it rains 6 inches here, right over the lake, then the water level is only going to rise by about 6 inches. If you take that same amount of water and spread it out over the entirety of the watershed, that 6 inches of rain suddenly turns into a flood of billions of gallons of water and feet of elevation gain. Of course, all controlled by a network of rivers, dams, and lakes to control the flooding. But that kind of rainfall is becoming less likely. One study shows that due to climate change, the 100th meridian, a boundary across West Texas that separates the desert Southwest from the humid east, is shifting towards the east. That is bringing more arid desert-like conditions to the majority of the Highland Lake watershed, and the LCRA is having to adapt to these extremes.
Well, that's one of the reasons why it was really important that we changed our drought contingency plan so that these additional conservation measures kick in sooner rather than later.
Want to show you a special in-depth look at Hurricane Beryl this morning, now an hour after landfall. Thank goodness it did make landfall, because check this out. Category 1, 80-mile-per-hour winds. Let me get you a closer look at this three-dimensional satellite view. You can see how much larger the cloud field became of Beryl. It was about to attempt another rapid intensification process. That process now being cut short right as that eye is trying to appear in that cloud field. Here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. This is a Category 1 storm, 80-mile-per-hour winds, but gusting over 90 in some pockets. It's been wobbling on final approach to the Texas coast, a little east, a little west, but the consensus is that this is going to continue to be too far away from us to be that big of a deal, with the exception of winds. Look at how strong these winds are in southeast Texas, gusting over 80 miles per hour in a couple of spots. Some of the Houston area now seeing that, along with tornado concerns. This is also driving quite a bit of ocean water inland. Storm surge to the tune of what could be 5 to 7 feet in a couple of pockets. Not the biggest storm surge this part of Texas has ever seen, but that is a huge concern for the immediate coastal areas. And of course, we have the wind impacts, and the flooding rain is also going to be a big deal right around Houston Metro. Let me show you where we stand on Beryl. The dry side. This is the big shift that we had since we last spoke last week. Being on the dry side of a hurricane means, yeah, you can still get some rainfall, some flooding, also some strong winds, but otherwise it's not that big of a deal, especially compared to the wet side, the east side of Beryl. Significant flooding, tornadoes, that's already showing itself in the form of some tornado warnings around the greater Houston area. That's going to be where the worst of this storm is through the rest of the day. Let me put a timestamp on this. Between now and this evening, Beryl is moving pretty quickly up the east side of Texas. Again, on the dry side, not a huge impact for us other than the strong winds.
Winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings were issued yesterday afternoon, but are not in effect until late this evening after 6 p.m., especially along and east of I-35. That's because the confidence in snow accumulating all the way up to 3 inches in some isolated locations has increased. As we told you on Friday of last week, yeah, we've got all the ingredients you need for winter weather to happen. Cold air, moisture, and lift. So could we be looking at a significant snowstorm from here to southeast Texas? Hold the phone, stop the presses. Dry Air is calling and wants to have a little chat about our local prospects especially. It's cold. You don't need me to tell you that stepping outside, but it's also extremely dry. Dew point temperatures shown here in the single digits. That's about as dry of air as you could get this far south in the lower 48. And it's going to be with us all the way through this afternoon into the early evening hours. That complicates things considerably because while that's happening at the surface, about 6,000 or 7,000 feet above our heads, yeah, winds are out of the south. And we're starting to channel some of this moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico to feed into an approaching upper level storm system. Where these two meet, there's a high likelihood for Yes, winter precip. We expect that happening late tonight into tomorrow morning. But where those ingredients line up just right for heavy snow and a lot of it to accumulate, certainly going to be in place in southeast Texas. We definitely have a snow chance here at home for most of our viewing area, but this is going to be the questionable area from I-35 towards the hill country where that battleground happens between snow developing and falling above our heads and it trying to get gobbled up by dry air at the surface. In general, we're still playing it safe, calling for a widespread snow chance, accumulating snow showers as early as after 6 p.m. this evening, but especially through the early morning hours tomorrow before we clear this all out, and we'll improve our road conditions by tomorrow afternoon. So let me give you a couple different scenarios. First, with this computer model, which is aggressive on what we could see, starts off with clouds rolling in late this morning into the afternoon. Overcast through late this evening. It's not until after 6 p.m. that a little bit of that wintry mix or light snow shower activity begins, but here comes that upper level lift, and thus begins our bigger event of snow accumulating through the overnight hours. After midnight, that's when we see the majority of what we're going to see falling from the sky, from the hill country, and especially along and east of I-35. Still with us through 4:35, even 6 a.m. before all of this starts to pretty quickly progress towards southeast Texas. And by tomorrow afternoon, we're climbing back above freezing and hopefully putting the worst of our travel impacts associated with this event to bed. So what I just showed you, if it comes to pass and the snow does indeed overpower the dry air at the surface, well, then we could get a ½ inch, 1 to 2 inches in Austin, perhaps some 2 to 3 inch totals from southeast areas all the way to southeast Texas. Here's another computer model opinion, and what really complicates things, we've got some opinions that say, hey, that dry air is way too much to overcome, and we've got very little accumulation as a result. So for now, yes, we are going to keep our weather alerts in place. This is from the National Weather Service, a winter storm brewing all the way through the deep south. But it is not set in stone. I mean, we're going to see some last-minute changes all the way up through the start of this event starting tomorrow morning. So here's how it looks. Snow chances in tomorrow morning. A few more freezes in the books before we warm up.
It happens at least once every year. Our atmosphere shifting from this one day to this the next day, all because of Saharan dust. Why does it come here, though, on such a regular frequency each and every summer? It's because of how our atmosphere operates up here in the northern hemisphere. In general, weather in the northern hemisphere, where we live, moves from west to east. It's a different story, though, in Africa, where due to the extreme temperature differences between the Sahara Desert and the chilly waters of the Gulf of Guinea, weather here moves from east to west. Gets a special name, the African Easterly Jet, which has two big implications for Texas. We learned this earlier this month. Tropical waves that come off of the west coast of Africa eventually get into the Atlantic waters and spin up into hurricanes. That was Beryl earlier this month. The second impact, which is far more regular, every year we at least get one of these plumes, is the Saharan air layer develops. That's millions of tons of dust being lofted about 10,000 feet into the atmosphere. That's what allows it to complete the 5,000-mile journey all the way to Texas. And this is no doubt our biggest plume of the season. It moved in last night, continues to thicken up over central and southeast Texas, and it'll be with us for a couple of days. With negative impacts in the air quality department, you're going to feel it in the eyes and in the throat. Allergies invigorated a bit, plus when dust is in place, harder to get rainfall. On the other side of the coin, this can lead to more colorful sunsets at times if the concentrations are a bit lower than what we're seeing now. And when dust is present, it's hard for tropical systems to develop in the Atlantic, which is largely why the first part of hurricane season, June all the way through July, which is where we are now, is typically quiet. That's going to change, though, as dust settles down and we get into August and September, especially a big flare-up in activity. This year more so than any other year of recent memory due to what is happening in the Pacific Ocean, believe it or not. We've been in El Nino conditions for a while now, but we're stair-stepping our way down towards neutral conditions now, and eventually we'll settle into La Nina conditions. That will invigorate the tropical Atlantic with quite a few disturbances to monitor in the next couple of months. Here's one of them. We'll show you where this is heading and what kind of path it could have to the Gulf of Mexico. That's coming up.